You know, every now and then a story pops up that makes you stop, look at the night sky, and think, well, now that's interesting. And this one takes the cake. Because for a brief moment last year, Earth had what some folks were calling a second moon, a mini moon. And that tiny visitor ended up sparking some big conversations about precious metals, technology, and where the world might try to get these materials from in the future. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This little asteroid named 2024 PT5 slipped into Earth's orbit for almost 2 months. It didn't complete a full loop, so mini moon was used kind of loosely, but it shadowed our moon closely enough to earn the nickname. And here's the part that got people talking. It was rich in rare earth metals. We're talking gold, platinum, cobalt, iron, the stuff modern technology depends on. Now, scientists have known for a long time that many asteroids are packed with metals. NASA once ran the numbers and estimated that the metal content of certain asteroids could be worth $100 million for every person on Earth. And just 10 of the most promising ones could contain up to $1.5 trillion worth of materials. And nobody's saying these metals are coming down to Earth anytime soon. The article makes it very clear that reaching an asteroid is extremely expensive and difficult, but the potential is what has space companies dreaming. And that brings us to the big question. Can we even get to these metals? So far, the answer has been not really. A few missions have managed to scoop tiny samples, NASA's OSIRIS-REx, Japan's Hayabusa missions, but when you look at the cost per gram, we're talking tens of millions to over $100 million for each tiny piece. That's not exactly practical for building phones or solar panels. But mini moons? Well, these are close. They're right overhead, and that's why after 2024 PT5 swung by, a bunch of space mining startups perked up. Now, before we go deeper into that, let me pause right here because this entire conversation about rare metals and long-term supply brings up something important. If you'd like to understand how physical precious metals fit into your own long-range strategy, especially in a world where technology demands keep climbing, Goldco has a free gold and silver kit that walks you through the fundamentals in plain English. Just call the number on your screen right now or click the link in the description below to get started. All right, back to orbit. Even though mini moons are promising targets, there's one problem. They're rare. Fewer than 10 have been spotted in the last decade, and even when they do appear, experts still disagree on how common they truly are. A team at the Vera C. Rubin Observatory believes new detection technology might help find more of them. But the reality is simple. You can't mine what you can't find. And even if you do find one, that's when the real trouble starts. Asteroids spin fast, they're scorching hot one moment, freezing the next, and totally unprotected from radiation. Landing on them is nearly impossible because they have hardly any gravity. There's nothing to anchor to. And even if you manage to get machinery onto the surface, tiny particles can kick up and clog it. That's why earlier missions used robotic arms to grab debris and then quickly back away. It's the only method that's worked so far. So instead of landing on these things, newer companies have come up with some pretty clever ways to catch them. Now, one company explored the idea of launching giant nets to snag an asteroid and tow it into a stable orbit. Another researcher studied spider-inspired mesh designs that would let an asteroid essentially drift into a web. And then there's a company called Trans-Astra, which wants to wrap an asteroid in a massive polyamide bag. Think cling film, but the space-age version, and use concentrated sunlight like a magnifying glass to melt it down. Since many asteroids are filled with ice, the idea is that you vaporize the ice and leave the metals behind. Now, whether any of these ideas ever become reality is another story. Funding disappears, missions take decades, some companies have already closed their doors. And as the article explains, even if we reached a giant metal-rich asteroid like Psyche, which NASA is planning to map in 2029, bringing large quantities of material back to Earth could cause major economic issues simply by flooding supply. So for now, asteroid mining remains just that, an idea. A fascinating one, but still an idea. And that brings us to a point worth thinking about. You see, whether we're talking about metals deep in space or the metals we hold in our hands down here on Earth, physical assets have always had a unique place in human history. They're tangible, and with all this talk about how difficult it is to access new sources of rare metals, even ones floating right above our heads, many folks find comfort in simply holding the real thing. Now, if you've been thinking about adding physical gold or silver to your broader long-term approach, Goldco has something special going on right now. You can get up to 10% of your qualifying order in bonus silver, and you can also receive a free Ronald Reagan half-ounce silver coin. It's a meaningful piece, beautifully minted, and a great way to start learning about precious metals firsthand. Just call the number on your screen right now or click the link in the description below to get started. At the end of the day, the idea of a mini moon drifting overhead full of gold and platinum is exciting. It sparks imagination, it inspires engineers, scientists, and authors, but as the article points out, without enormous patience, funding, and decades of trial and error, most asteroid mining technology will stay in the realm of concept rather than reality. Meanwhile, the metals that have stood the test of time, the ones that civilizations have relied on for thousands of years, are already right here on Earth. And that's still a story worth paying attention to.